Hello there, and welcome to the Neckpour. My name's Lewis, and welcome to the Whisky Review channel, where you join me for my thoughts and opinions on a particular bottle of whisky from the Neckpour down to the dregs. So cheers, and let's get into this one. It's a slightly different kind of video, where I'm working on a little spiced liqueur to work on the £17 bottle of Bankhall British Single Malt that I bought. You join me here in a slightly different location in my kitchen, as I'm getting all my ingredients together for what I put into this. And firstly, you'll see there's an apple, a lemon, a lime, and a grapefruit all lined up there, and an orange that we're going to put in as we're going to infuse this whiskey, as I mentioned in my actual Neckpour video, which I'll drop a card for just here. And here's a little jar I've got. It's actually some sort of fermentation jar that I backed on Kickstarter quite a while ago, but I wanted to use it as it does have a weight in it, which would help keep everything submerged and make sure nothing went bad, as I am planning on putting this down for a little while and seeing what happens with it, because these flavors will take some time to get to know each other and get together. But yeah, as mentioned in my Neckpour, I did quite enjoy the Bankhall. As you saw at the start, I had a little sip just to remind me of what I thought of it. And yeah, surprisingly good for £17, although just a little bit kind of generic, but for that price, what can we expect? So here I am grabbing the peeler, and we're going to start off with a couple of strips of each of the citrus fruits, trying to be pretty gentle with the peeler to not get too much of the white pith, as that'll bring bitterness in. And yeah, just going for a couple of nice little sweeps here. Gone for 3 on the orange, straight into the jar. I mean, this isn't exactly a scientific process. I've not done this before, just something I wanted to give a go with, and what a better way to do it than with something that's not super expensive. I've just gone for 1 of the grapefruit, as that's a reasonably bitter fruit and much less sweet than the orange. And the same with the lime, just 1 of those. And also the lemon. So they've all gone in there. Put them to one side and pick up the apple. I've gone with a green apple to not add too much sweetness, but a nice fresh kind of crunchiness and bite, I figured. So give this a quick peel, because again, I didn't want anything from that outer skin potentially adding any off or bitter or weird flavors to the whiskey. And give it a nice peel all the way around. Put it into a little bowl of scraps to go in the bin. Yeah, taking care to get all of that skin off, and then just chopping that up, take it down into pieces, and then I dice it pretty finely here. Again, not using the core, and just cutting out any last little remnants of the core that came through when I didn't cut it particularly well. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Never cut towards yourself, things like that, as this is dangerous. But yeah, as you can see, I'm dicing this up pretty finely, because the more surface area we've got in the jar, the faster it's going to infuse and the more it's going to infuse. And yeah, this is a kind of a bit of a proof of concept on a pretty small scale here, because it is pretty early in the year. I don't think it's going to take 7 months to get ready for the winter and for Christmas. But yeah, just doing a small scale little batch here. We might infuse it once, might infuse it twice, might infuse it 3 times, just to get the flavour profile to where I want it to be. But we want to add a bit of sweetness, a bit of body to this, and a bit of interest. So we're going to try quite a few things, and possibly over a couple of stages. And I will be sure to come back and film videos at each kind of stage. So we've got all that apple diced up nicely. Again, key thing before you start any of these things, making sure that both yourself and the things you're using, so all the sides, knives, chopping boards, etc. used, were super clean. Because despite the fact that the alcohol should kill any nasties that are kicking around in there, it's always better to be safe than sorry. And again, that's why I wanted something with a bit of downward force on it. And you'll see here, I've got some golden raisins, some apricots, and some dried figs. The reason they're in a colander is because I've washed them all off, and just to make sure, remove anything that was on the outside of them, any dust or anything like that. And I also made sure to buy ones that weren't coated in sunflower oil, because to stop clumping, quite a few of them do have sunflower oil in. And so we're starting off with 10 apricots. I am just chopping these up just so that the whiskey can access the insides of them a bit quicker. So yeah, there goes 10 apricots. And then on top of that, I've got 5 figs that are also dried, because yeah, I just wanted to get some nice dark fruits in there. I was thinking of a kind of deep winter spice and those kind of Christmas puddingy type vibes. And yeah, that's what I've decided to go for in this occasion. And then there's just a couple of handfuls of golden raisins that I did a shocking job of pouring straight in there, and I put quite a few of them on the side. But I go back and pick them all up and chuck them in there. Again, just pushing it down to make sure there's a good bit of headroom at the top, because as you'll see, I will be adding a couple more bits and bobs. Give that a sniff, smelling pretty nice in there. And yeah, we'll see what it's like. We've got a couple more things to add. As you can see, the cap just in the very corner there, she's just going out. And then in addition to the fresh and dried fruits, we've got a couple of spices to add in here and spice things, just to increase the flavours a little bit. Firstly, we've got a nice stick of cinnamon. This is actually Ceylon cinnamon that we brought back from Sri Lanka on our honeymoon. I've got for half a stick, because I've had cinnamon can be a little bit overpowering, and this is pretty strong stuff that we've gone for. So that's gone in there. And then next of all, I've got a Madagascan vanilla pod here. I'm just opening the packet up, because again, when you think of those nice flavours, something like a vanilla is kind of spot on for those kind of liqueur type drinks. So I've just gone for one pod here that I'll split down the middle, just again to make sure there's good access to all of the things. And despite that means there's going to be vanilla beans and vanilla seeds all throughout the whiskey, we can always give it a quick filter at the end, and just through maybe a fine sieve or even through a washed coffee filter, just to make sure we get anything out of that. But yeah, this is a pretty thin whiskey, and you can see the couple of beans that came out as I was chopping it open. I've just scraped straight in there, chucked in half of it, making sure to scrape it all off, because proper vanilla is not cheap. Don't want it to go to waste, the prices. And that's sort of everything in there that I want to get in there. So then I grab my scales, because the other thing that I'd like to do is to keep track of the volume that's gone into it and the volume that comes back out of it, as a way of knowing that it's going in at exactly 40%. And I imagine from the fresh fruit, it's probably actually going to slightly gain in volume. So it'd be interesting to know what the kind of final ABV comes out at, as kind of unscientifically as our little home scales are. And just giving them a quick wipe down first, because they were a little bit dusty from being on the side for a while. We'll fire them up. Also sprayed some on my glass and on the front of the bottle, so just tidying that up. So chuck it on there and zero it off, and we're ready to add our whiskey in. So we're going with this to a total weight of 305 grams, which is roughly 305 millilitres. But it's always good to pour this pretty slowly, because as you can see, it kind of looked full, but it wasn't, because there's all that air in between the things where they've been finely diced. So yeah, 305 was the final we put in there. And then it's just a matter of putting the jar together. So I go and grab, there's the glass weight, which I thought would be pretty important to keep everything fully in the alcohol. There's nothing exposed to air, so there's nothing that can get any rot or any kind of fouling going on in there. because, you know, we want to be safe at the end of the day. Then I go get the rest of the jar, put it all together, and it's nothing to do now but chuck it in a dark place and wait for a couple of weeks. I will periodically get it out and give it a little taste and see how we're getting on. And yeah, we'll certainly be back for a update on this one. And I think what I'll plan on doing is try and leave the dregs of the bottle of Bankhall at the same time that I've finished my first draft, as it were, of the winter spice liqueur that I'm making. As you can see, the lid's got a spring in it, which is going to hold that down, keep everything submerged. But other than that, that's the lid on and everything's going away. So that's all for this little update. As I said, I will drop this in a little playlist of its own of the £17 whiskey and what becomes of it, along with the Neckpour and the dregs. Other than that, cheers, Salancha, and I'll see you in the next one.